Okay, everyone, we are going to kick off. I would like to just start by opening our meeting tonight with a brief karakia. So, Modi oho, Modi tu, Modi ora kia tātou. Haumi e, hui e, tai kia. Kia ora e te whānau ki TELSIG, no mai haere mai ki tēnei hui, ko Ngāti Pākehā te iwi, ko Otaki te haukainga, ko Marisa King tōku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So kia ora everyone, lovely to see you. TELSIG is officially back on the map. Yay! So I'm Marisa, I'm the new co-convener of TELSIG, along with Natalie Smith, who is with us tonight. And we also have Ivy Guo, who is helping us to get this up and running, and a friendly committee of people. So it's very exciting to be holding this webinar and to be officially letting people know that we are back. So what I would like to do now is hand over to Helen Heath from the friendly LIANZA office, who's just going to say a few words about LIANZA. Anna Pickering was supposed to be here tonight, but she unfortunately has a flooding situation at home, so she can't make it. So, welcome, Helen.
Tēnā koutou. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, poor Anna has got water pouring through her ceiling tonight. But anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the Comms Advisor at LIANZA. And I'm not sure how many such as working in the sector. So many here tonight haven't joined TELSIG yet, or please tell your colleagues to do so, but presumably most of you already know. But so really what we're interested in is making sure, well, first of all, thank you so much to Natalie and Marisa for reinvigorating TELSIG. We're really excited, and to ensure that the tertiary is with LIANZA. And thank you to the speakers for the next couple of nights. But what I was really interested in doing is working with TELSIG to make sure that we're meeting the needs of tertiarians at all stages of their career. So we're really thrilled that TELSIG's back up and running, and we'll be looking to see if we can glean some ideas all about how we can support tertiary librarians and how to strengthen content that's relevant for tertiary library staff at our next conference in 2021. And we're really keen to see more abstracts submitted from tertiary librarians. So hopefully tonight, you might get excited about what you're hearing from your colleagues and be inspired to submit in 2021. And before I go, I was just hoping that maybe via chat, you might be able to say where you're from, whether you're from a university or from a polytechnic. We're kind of interested to see who's zooming in from where. And finally, I just want to mention that we're following up. We heard that AUT are doing a little a series of conversations on 3 of their campuses about learnings they've taken away from LIANZA Conference too. So we'll be keeping everybody updated on anything that's coming out of that. So really, I just want to say thank you to you all, and keep in contact. Good night. Oh, I'll be tweeting as well. So.
Lovely, Helen. Thank you so much. I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank the team at the LIANZA office who have been incredibly helpful to us in getting TELSIG back up and running and getting the message out there. So we really appreciate it. Okay, so I think it's time to move on to our first speaker for the evening, and that is Iva Matagi from the Manukau Institute of Technology. So I should just quickly give you a rundown on how we're going to do things tonight. So each speaker will have 15 minutes to speak, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll move on to the next person. So that's how we're going to run things. But in the meantime, I'd like to welcome Iva, who is going to talk to us about holistic approaches to the reference interview. Welcome, Iva.
Kia ora koutou, talofa lava, and warmest Pacific greetings to you all from Manukau. I am Iva Matagi, born and bred South Aucklander, and besides a stint in Brisbane, I've lived most of my life here. So I'm just going to share my PowerPoint with you all. Share screen. Here we go. So my library journey started at Otara Public Library and continues today in my role as a subject librarian for the Schools of Nursing, Health and Counselling here at MIT. And now I share my library journey with you as just a simple illustration of Talanoa. And Talanoa is a living Pacific concept that literally translates into to speak or to talk. But there's much more to Talanoa than just the act of talking. Through Talanoa, we share experiences, we share history, we share a part of ourselves and our genealogy. And we share that in order to understand one another on a deeper level. So I share a bit of my story in the hope that it helps to create a safe space for us to connect. So this year's library conference really inspired me to look within myself and to think about my library practice and journey, both as a Pacifica learner and a Pacifica librarian. And the main thing kept popping into my head was the reference interview. And I've been a librarian for many years. And the reference interview at first was very daunting and intimidated me. But as you live and breathe libraries and you grow and learn within your library practice, it becomes a good friend that helps to anchor you and to navigate the diversity of questions and learners that cross our paths. And my choice of topic came about because of this feeling, because of a feeling. You know, however good a friend the reference interview was, I always had a nagging feeling that there was something amiss in the relationship. Sorry, here we go. And holistic approaches to the reference interview illustrates like my journey through this feeling of uneasiness. And this feeling was more profound in my role as a subject librarian. And it didn't haunt me so much when I first started libraries. And now thinking back, it was probably because I was so engrossed in learning a new profession, learning about libraries, learning about the community that I was in. And I was really privileged to start my library career at Otara Public Library. And it's a very unique library and a unique community where there's an intense level of connectiveness and engagement with the community. And this connectiveness really dictated the way that we engaged with people. So my hope is that, you know, you're able to take away a concept, an idea, a feeling to help make the reference interview a safer and more empowering place or space for you and your Pacifica learner. So therefore, in a holistic approach, I'm concentrating on the learner's journey. The reference interview is one moment in that journey. And by focusing on the Pacifica learner's journey, I touch on the importance of making connections, of knowing your learner, and on concepts such as Talanoa, Te Oleva, and Ako. So I'd just like to share some voices from our Level 4 Pacifica students on approaching a librarian.
For me, not easy at all. Like I would do everything I can to not ask the librarian for help. As in, I'll Google stuff myself, like just the referencing and stuff, or I'll even ask my friends for help rather than approach a librarian.
I think with the online websites and services as well, it's easier to just look up information or how to do things rather than talking to someone face to face. And it's less intimidating as well. I don't have to explain what I don't know.
And I don't want to come across like I don't know something I possibly should have wrote previously.
Yeah, I get to stand my own comfort zone.
So I think, you know, we're all very aware of the importance of making connections and being visible to our students and our communities and our stakeholders. But how do we share knowledge and skills, and how do we engage with our learners when they fear to engage with us, or even worse, when they don't see us at all? So there's no reference interview without a learner. In the context of a tertiary library, you know, we always strive to be less scary and more relevant to our learners, but maybe we need to be a more outward focus in our approaches. Building relationships with Pacifica learners starts well outside the library doors. And there are multiple touch points that are both formal and informal, traditional and non-traditional, in a learner's journey that we can be intentionally involved in, so that we can help bridge that fear factor and promote our value and relevancy. Often the informal spaces, they take us away from our traditional librarian roles, but I think that's okay, because if we understand the importance of building relationships and connections, then we understand, then we can connect with our learners, then we know why we need to step outside our comfort zones. You know, as a subject librarian, you know, how many times have I stood there, or how many times have we stood there in front of a class or a session, and our library-friendly lecturers, you know, bless them all, they promote us and they encourage students to make friends with the friendly librarians. And in the back of your head, you're thinking, are our students really listening? One of the benefits of making a connection with one learner is that you make a connection with their group of friends. And our learners are our best advocates. And we need to connect with them in places that are relevant to them. So to make real connections, we really need to know our learner.
I prefer face-to-face contact, but I can't bring myself to actually go up to a librarian to ask for help. It's just, it comes back to that being intimidated and having to admit that I don't know how to do something, and that I need help from a stranger. But and say that I prefer going to my tutor, because not only do they know how, from my work, how I study and how I understand things, but they can, because there's a relationship there, they know me, or they know better ways of helping me.
So focusing on a Pacifica learner's journey means also knowing your learner beyond just as a library user. Nowadays, there are more social and community spaces and events that give you a taste of a Pacifica learner's life. Pacific Island Language Week events, community language courses, and simply talanoa or talking to your Pacifica colleagues and students. For an educational focus, I found tertiary courses such as the New Zealand Certificate in Adult Literacy and Numeracy, CTT, which most of us will be familiar with, the New Zealand Certificate in Tertiary Teaching, and the short courses that Ako Aotearoa provide for Pacifica, Māori and under 25 learners. I found them really useful and really insightful. These courses gave specific learning examples of how to engage with Māori, with Pacifica and with under 25s. It's been a long time since I've been under 25, so I think everybody's got something to learn from these courses. They also reaffirmed Māori and Pacifica worldviews. And as a result, I've tried to reevaluate everything that I do through a fresh and hopefully relevant educational focus. The biggest takeaway from these courses is the self-reflection that goes on. And specifically how to incorporate concepts such as ako into my practice. So the concepts that I will touch on have a lot of literature behind them now, and at the back of the PowerPoint I've got some readings in that you may want to go to. But these courses, Te o Lewa and ako, they're Pacifica and Māori relationship concepts. And now they really do anchor and guide my librarianship practice in regards to the reference interview and also in regards to how I engage with all learners. So Te Lewa is a concept that relates to nurturing the spaces between people. Va is a pan-Pacific concept, I suppose you can call it, about spaces between people. The spaces between people are never empty. It could be spaces between living people and also spaces between people who have passed on. So Te Lewa relates to nurturing those spaces between people. And within the context of the reference interview, it reminds me to be forever mindful that my actions and behaviour, words and talanoa should help to lift and encourage, not belittle or embarrass a learner. Te Lewa makes me mindful of the places that our learners come from. Through talanoa, you learn and appreciate the struggles that some of our learners have gone through, but also I'm constantly reminded that they share a story of hope for a better life for themselves and their families. So Te Lewa in particular reminds me to see the learner as a whole person. So this puts the onus on me to nurture the spaces and relationships between my team and other teams that the learner's journey touches. From a Pacifica learner's view, the space or va between us may be very unnerving and represent an unknown space. And we need to help learners negotiate and give them tools to positively navigate the space and make it a space that they can be unafraid in and flourish in. And I think ako is a beautiful concept that can help the spaces become more safer. So ako feels familiar to me as a natural way of learning, and I'm sure it will be familiar to everyone else as well. Ako means to both teach and to learn. So in any learning, you are both a teacher and a learner. It is a concept that is embedded in Pacific and Māori cultures. And ako concentrates on the journey and the tone of the journey, not just the outcome or the end result. Because ako promotes equality through valuing learners and their experience, I feel for me, it has helped me to recognise and dismantle any notions of power in the reference interview. So learners come to us for help because they need to know something. Pacifica learners come reluctantly often with a deficit mindset because of past learning experiences, because the space that they are entering is new, untested and foreign. So in this case, use your talanoa skills to find a connection. Where possible, make a solid link with learners' own knowledge and what they are seeking to know. Going back to my original comment, the feeling of uneasiness, I know now that it was because even though I'd gone through the reference interview process thoroughly, I thought I had, it's still one-dimensional, which meant that the Pacifica learners could not see or feel a reflection of their ways of knowing and a reflection of themselves within this process. So there was a level of connectiveness that was missed. The quality of the relationships that we build with our learners really do matter, and the safe spaces that we can create through talanoa, through Te Lewa, and through the beauty of ako are spaces where our learners can experiment and can learn and grow. And by seeing and feeling themselves at any point of contact, because there's numerous points of contact that we can be involved in, they know that we care about their learning. And I think for all learners, that's what they want to feel, that somebody cares about their learning. Whawhiti lava. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. That was really, really interesting and very inspiring. One of the comments you made that really had a chord with me was make a connection with one learner and you make a connection with their group of friends.
Yes, yeah.
And I think as subject librarians, we often get stressed out by the fact that we can't touch everyone in our
That's right,
school.
yeah.
So that's a really, really useful point to make. Thank you again.
More than okay.
Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask Eva?
It's a nice comment.
Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah. There are some lovely comments on the chat. Thank you very much for those. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. You can relax now.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right, and now I can start feeling nervous. Right, bear with me.
Welcome, Joanna. So our next speaker is Joanna Wenman from Massey University, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her presentation because it's about one of my favourite topics, which is parties. It's party time, social research consultations for postgraduates. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. Kia ora, ko Joanna Wenman aho. I'm a subject librarian at Massey University, and this presentation was originally given by Kira at the LIANZA Conference, and she's now moved on to Waipahu College, so I'm presenting for her. So like you, Eva, my presentation is also about building connections and engagement with our learners and their friends, and particularly those who may not feel comfortable in the traditional library spaces. So we've been experimenting with one way to help do this. So how can we build better relationships with our clients? Are our educated guesses or assumptions of what they need actually correct? Can we create opportunities to measure satisfaction beyond a survey? And when do we ever take dedicated time to listen and learn about their experience? So we've been looking at this new way. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so since mid-2018, subject librarians at Massey's Manukau campus have been piloting a new form of research support for postgrads, and that's the research party. It's a relaxed and social setting where postgrads can chat and eat and mingle, ask questions, share their experiences with each other, with subject librarians, and we got some other partners in from within the university. So this manaakitanga allows subject librarians to establish relationships and gain insight more easily than in the usual very focused and structured consultations and classes that we traditionally hold. And the idea originated from the University of Pennsylvania, where they began in 2013, and they're still going strong there. So these are the articles which got us started. Branding Matters came to our marketing group. A subject librarian from Albany brought it to our attention in the marketing group, and it talks about taking existing services such as a drop-in session and simply repackaging them to encourage engagement. Throwing a research party talks about engaging students with research support, particularly as the reference desks disappear from our libraries, and also encouraging them to see themselves as part of a community of scholars. So subject librarians at Manukau liked the idea and decided to pilot it. And also around this time, elsewhere in the university, they were running writing boot camps for those writing a thesis, and they were quite successful, and the research party idea seemed to fit in with that, but we thought parties sounded like more fun than a boot camp. And this is a further article published earlier this year demonstrating the continued success of research parties. So the idea of a research party highlighted a gap in our service offerings for unstructured client-led research support that could work for a group of varying size, and they could bring along their friends, which helped. And it was the ideal opportunity to collaborate with other support services in the university. And one of the most valuable things to come out of the research parties was listening to the postgrads. And many of them that came along were international students, so they were feeling a bit adrift, and they did often come in a group for comfort. And just listening to their challenges and experiences and the sacrifices they've made to get to Massey was really interesting, and that was even before we started on their research topics. So we got a much deeper understanding of their experience as well as the research journey. So how do you go about planning and throwing a research party? So here is what we did. First up is to pick a venue, and preferably this won't be a classroom or a computer lab because it's a party, not a class. Have some laptops available. You can't quite see it in this photo, but on the far left we've got a giant video wall which we had a few things up on. Set up the room with relaxed furniture, kai table. We had some background music and the large screen. So this is actually one of our library discussion rooms, which is open for students to book. And at the most recent research party, we took it out of the library. This is a space which is part of the Graduate Research School, and it was previously a cafe, so it's set up quite nicely with a kitchen on the left there. And it was an ideal setup for the party, but not as central as the library, so that was not as good. That was a bit of a trek for the students to get to it. Next up, get some giveaways. So we got in touch with vendors and publishers to see if they had anything for us, and we got USBs and pens and blingy lanyards, soft toys and bags and all sorts of things. And it was surprising, you know, how popular even a glittery pencil can be. So that went down well. Next up is to plan the marketing. So we tried to use a different image to what we'd normally have on our traditional blue and gold Massey branded posters. We designed this marketing material. We sent it out via various channels to postgrads and staff. Used email lists, course announcement forums, online calendar, social media, posters. We have a big blackboard in the library, so we got some blackboard art put up and promoted it during regular library classes and research consultations. I think the biggest way to get people there was getting the message through to staff and supervisors. The ones that tended to come said, you know, their supervisor or the lecturer had told them about it and recommended they come. So word of mouth seemed to be quite important. Gather up some reading material which can help dispel, you know, awkward silences or anxious hovering. Not all librarians are good at mingling, I'm not, but we had all these cards with research themed questions lying around in case people needed something to look at while they're waiting, and we have various brochures that we get through from publishers and things like that that they seem to be quite interested in as well. Then prep the librarians. So I know lots of librarians, and I do like to plan and visualise it all ahead of time. So some of us were a bit apprehensive about the unknown, so we didn't ask for RSVPs, so we had no idea how many people were coming. It was important to keep in mind that we were party hosts, and you know, we answered lots of questions and supported research, but it was also a priority to just mingle and circulate. And if anyone had a really in-depth query, we would go some way towards answering it, but then might recommend an individual research consultation as well. Now, collaborate. So as well as we had 2 to 3 subject librarians at the parties, but we've also always had a writing consultant there from Centre for Teaching and Learning, and they've always been really popular. And at our more recent parties, we've had staff from Graduate Research School. So if there are questions along, you know, the rules around theses and things, that they were there to answer that. And the party guests seemed quite pleased to have access to these people alongside librarians. And then record who came, how they heard about their party, their contact details, any follow-up to do, and most importantly, the insights you gain. So the party's over, but the work is not. Use the insights, although it's called a party and we do provide research support, it's also user experience research in disguise. So use what you hear to improve or adjust your other services and offerings, and the party chit-chat became valuable data that we could use to improve our services. And lastly, repeat it, no matter how the first one goes. Host another party, test other venues, meet more people, and make more connections. So there are the references for the articles I looked at earlier. And if you want to contact either Kira or myself, we're on email there. So that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope that was useful.
That's great. Thank you, Joanna. The delay is just so that Ivy can unmute me.
Find my driver's seat is hard.
But thank you very much. There's just a question that's popped up in the chat, and that's how often do you run these parties?
How often? We've been trying for at least once a semester. I think we've run 2 or 3 this year.
Fantastic. And how many people did you get along?
It varies. This one you see here, it was the most popular. I think we had about 13 or 14. We have had some where it's been 4 to 5, and interestingly, the most recent one where we went to that nice graduate research school space, that was only about 4 or 5, so we're not sure whether it was location or not. But you know, we still made some good connections, and it's still, you know, even if you get one that's not so well attended, we still intend to carry on doing them.
Yeah, that's great. Another question that's come through is, were these held after hours?
We tried at different times. We've tended to settle around the afternoon, 2 to 3. Our very first ones, we were quite ambitious. We ran 2 very close together, just a week apart, but tried to get different times. I think one was at 11 o'clock in the morning and one was maybe at 4 o'clock the following week, but we tend to go for the middle of the day now.
Right, lovely. Okay, well, Natalie's just posted that we do have a little bit of time. So are there any other questions that people would like to throw at Joanna before we let her off the hook? Okay, I will take silence as a no on that one. So again, thank you very much, Joanna, and to Kira for coming along and repeating the presentation for us.
Cool, thank you.
So now we move. Yeah,
there was one more question.
Oh, sorry, there's one more question. Did you come across any issues getting funding or buy-in from other staff?
Funding or buy-in? Well, it was done on a very low budget, so lots of free things from the vendors. The first one we laid out quite a lot of food, but we found they weren't there for the food, so now it's like a packet of chippies and a packet of biscuits. Buy-in from other staff, so outside the library, Centre for Teaching and Learning, and Graduate Research School, they were very keen, so they jumped on board. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, I'll just, anybody else like to ask a question? Yes, there will be time at the end. final questions or comments they would like to submit. But in the meantime, thank you again, Joanna. And we will move on to our next presenter, and that is Mojgan Sadighi. I hope I've said that right, Mojgan. She is from Massey University, and her topic, she is also, I should say, on the new TELSIG committee and has been working hard with the rest of the team to get things underway. And her topic tonight is Connect, Collaborate and Cultivate, an example of community collaboration. So welcome, Mojgan.
Thank you. Thanks, Marissa. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Mojgan and I work at the lending team here at Massey University in Palmerston North. Prior to the current role, I was the head librarian at Institute of Pacific United, IPU, as it's known, in Palmerston North for 3 years. And today's presentation is based on one of the projects that I was involved when I was at IPU. So a bit of background about me, I sort of worked in public libraries and university libraries in Australia for many years before moving to Palmerston North. However, I feel that the majority of the roles that I had were in public libraries, especially delivering different community projects in different roles that I had. So when I moved to my role at IPU in the tertiary sector, I strongly felt that I wanted to bring some of the learnings that I had from the community projects and engagements and the interest that I had into the new role and build up a community relationship between IPU library and students and staff and the wider community, mainly the Palmerston North community. In early 2018, IPU Library partnered with Manukau Multicultural Council, or MMC, to facilitate and promote a series of workshops about writing and communication, basically, for international students at all levels. So we were basically the sort of first phase of the project, and I'll explain about the project because it was a bigger project and we were just started with the small part of it at IPU. And this presentation will discuss the methods we used, the challenges we faced, the outcome of the project, and hopefully it will provide some inspirations and maybe some guidelines for other tertiary libraries to engage with their local communities at different levels. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't shared my screen with you guys. Okay. So the project was initially proposed by Ms. Mayette Marlin Corp, who was one of the executive members at MMC at the time. And its main focus was for migrants and international students in Palmerston North. I will read the 4 objectives that she put in her project proposal because this is what the initial project was for MMC. And what you see on the screen is the questions we used when we had the information session for the students. So the objectives for MMC to run this project were to provide opportunities for migrants and international students with English as a second language to positively assimilate themselves in their new community, to build connections and offer interactions between recent migrant students and the Palmerston North community, to find a medium for migrant and international students to introduce themselves through creative writing and express their culture in other literary and creative art forms, to create opportunities for local migrant and international students to engage with and participate in the local cultural and arts activities. So those were MMC's sort of purpose. For us at IPU to join this project, I had 2 main sort of aims in mind and 2 main goals in mind. The first one was to partner with a community group to create a positive change and improve the well-being of our students mainly, and I will come back to that in a minute. And the second one was to recognize and celebrate the diversity, both within our students and the staff and also the wider community, the sort of Palmerston North community through the project collaborations that we do. The reason for the first one, for me, that I strongly wanted to do this was IPU, for those who don't know, is a small tertiary private institute with got about between 400 to 450 students. The majority of the students are staying on campus and accommodations. Yes, it's set up on a beautiful hill and it's got beautiful view, but it's reasonably isolated from the city center. At the time that we joined the project, IPU students didn't have access to the free bus services that other tertiary institutes here like Massey and UCOL had. So it was expensive for them to go to town. I realized they're not using the public library, they're not using any other community centers, and they're not really interacting with the community as much as they should be. So I thought they might feel a bit isolated. To add to that, which was a good thing, is that our library also had recreational reading materials, good fiction, and junior and young adult fiction collection, and very good collection of movies. And of course, they all had free access to their library, so they didn't feel the need to go out and to go to the public library. But I wanted to create this opportunity for them to engage with the community, and through that, hopefully build a network and get out of this sort of shell. So in the picture on the left side of the screen, this is the information session that we ran for the students and those who came. On the right hand side of the picture, there are a couple of ladies from MMC trying to explain, and then a couple of the volunteers and the students, and there are some students on the other side, which is not captured here. And there's a first version of the poster that my daughter actually created for me for $5 to put out there for the students. So how did we do it? We use our existing connections and networks that we had. No matter how small it was, we just had to start from somewhere. I had prior connection to MMC. I was volunteering for them at the time. I knew Mayet through another project that we were involved, and the conversation about this project came up during an afternoon tea for the interpreters in Palmerston North. So she just mentioned that she's thinking about such projects, but IPU wasn't initially part of the participating institutes because it's private. So she had in mind the high schools and Massey and UCOL, and she just sort of casually put it out there that, oh, you know, do you want to get involved? And I just grabbed it there and I said, how about we become the pilot students? We use us as a first one, and then move on, because I really wanted to get involved with this. Also, because we had good connection and relationship with our students in the library, I started shoulder tapping the students that I already knew and had this good relationship with. And through them, I encouraged them to shoulder tap their friends. I talked to some of the lecturers and the colleagues that I knew at IPU and tried to encourage them to become volunteers on a day for the workshop with the English writing, or those who knew some crafts and art material to help our students with their art projects. Obviously, I had to attain the approval from IPU management team, the board of trustees. So I had to put the proposal in and explain the benefits for us and for IPU. Then we set up this information station and encourage a student to participate, and sort of ask for volunteers, as I mentioned, for the English teaching and the arts. And in the information session that we ran, we explained clearly to the students what was involved, asked them about their preference in the type of art or creative work that they want to do, reassure them that they will be supported all the way and they're not going to be left on their own to do things. And most importantly, that it doesn't cost them anything. There was limited time, so, you know, very small amount of time that they needed to spend on these things, and there was no financial burden on them. Everything was provided mainly by MMC and IPU. And it was a very low cost project, because all we needed to spend money on was some painting materials, some drawing materials, and some craft, depends on what they wanted to do. And also I explained to them why it's important for them and what benefits they will take from this project. So one was that, hey, you get access to a free English tutor. So they can go through your work and you get the advice, and that could help you with the rest of your writings as well. But also because how the project was going to come was eventually all the work from not just IPU, all the other institute that would participate would be printed as like a book and be on display at the City Library with a big opening with mayor and the councillors and the public, and the creative sort of work would also be on display. So they would actually have their names there, they would have their photos with their work, and I said, well, you have your 15 minutes of fame by doing this, but also we were going to show our students' work through on the Spring Festival in September. So that was another way. And we always have, well, they had the CEO and the president coming from Japan. And for our students, it was important that their work has been shown, and they sort of shown their work and their collaboration through the project. I also mentioned to them that yes, both CEO and the president are aware of this project. They're very supportive, and they sort of expect the students to participate, and they would like them to participate. So sort of show the tab on that area as well to make sure that I get some buy-ins. So on a day, we basically had one full day of the workshop. We had 15 students participating. The morning was the writing workshop. We had about 4 tutors plus myself and Mayat going around talking to students, help them with their writing without changing the content or the structure, just helping them with, just making sure it's sort of correct English. And then in the afternoon, it was the art and craft part. So some of the activities were easy to start in that room, which was at IPU Library, one of the training rooms. Like we had tutors to show them how to do some of the crafts. They did the Chinese finger painting, for example. We had a student who was working on Japanese calligraphy. And some of the others were a little bit more complicated. So some took longer, so they will come on a weekly basis and take the material and work on their works. For example, those who were doing paintings. 2 groups of students wanted to do dance. We had Papuan groups, and we had a Japanese group who wanted to do dance. So we got one of our dance instructors who runs classes at MMC as a volunteer to come and do the class. We used the dance studio at IPU for free, and we ran rehearsals twice a week for a few weeks after the workshop with those students to get them up and running with the dance project, basically. So this is one of the examples of the Japanese sort of calligraphy that one of the students decided to do. These are our Papuan girls doing rehearsals, and the person sitting on the ground is their tutor. These are the girls with their dresses, with their outfits. These are 2 of the students who write in IPU in Japanese. And these are some of the finished works. So on the left side, you can see the finger painting of the Chinese sort of, I think it's plum tree maybe, and some of the paintings and drawings. The drawing with the coloring pencil is one of our Papuan boys drew his hut and where the village that he comes from, and the view that is from his village. And on the right hand side, it's not the best quality photo. I was too busy on the day to take good photos of Spring Festival, but this is the display we had from MMC with the works of the students, but they put photos there, and some of their craft materials also on display. Our dance group also performed during the Spring Festival, and we even had a magician. One of our young boys, he's actually quite successful and well known. He could do magic tricks. So he did his writing, but he also chose magic tricks as his creative work. And he ran 2 sessions in the library in that training room, which was jam-packed with people. So for us, the results were quite positive. We had good participation for the first sort of attempt. We were quite happy with the results, and the display was well received by people because the Spring Festival is quite well known in Palmerston North. People even travel from outside Palmerston North and from Wellington, and but 3,000 people at least visit IPU on that day. So there was a lot of foot traffic through the library and IPU, and lots of people saw the artwork and left positive comments about that. Now, this slide and the next one will sort of put some of the recommendations that I could say based on the readings and the experience that we had about if you thinking about a community engagement the project. So I'll let you read it, but I would sort of summarize it. Basically, it is important to know what you're trying to gain from this project. Partners obviously are very important. It's very difficult to do something on your own. You need to have 1 or 2 or 3 partners at least to be able to deliver things, especially if you're trying to cut the costs. So you're trying to use facilities and human resources from your partners, rather than hiring a place or paying someone to do the work. Have face-to-face meetings. We did have lots of meetings with MMC before we had the information session with the students to understand exactly what the expectations are from each party and what objectives are. Information session, it's important with all the people involved and trying to answer their questions. You might have to have many information sessions. In our case, it was a small project, so it wasn't too bad. I had to run a casual one and follow up with some people who couldn't attend on a day to make sure everyone knows what's on stake. And regularly keeping in contact with the participants. I am quite good at being a bit pushy maybe and bossy sometimes, so it works all right for us, because dealing with lots of teenagers who have their studies and life outside study, to get them to stay committed in what's involved in project was a bit challenging, especially with our dance group. I found that if I'm not attending the rehearsal sessions, there's always 1 or 2 person missing, and because it was a teamwork, it wasn't really working successfully. I had to go overseas. I think it was a conference. I had to go for a week, and both sessions sort of fell apart, and I received this complaint from the tutor to say that half the students didn't turn up, even though I was sending them reminders all the time. So I attended every single rehearsal after that at night, a couple of hours a night, twice a week, which was quite exhausting, but that was the only way to make sure that things get done. So sometimes it's a bit hard work, but it will pay off. Evaluating your project regularly is important, and sharing the outcome with the people who are involved, and just keeping them up to date and see what's going on. Flexibility, I would say, is one of the most important things, because you never know, things will change. People won't turn up in this session. Someone will decide halfway through that this is not for them, they don't want to do it. So it's important to be able to modify your project, change it. At some point, you might even have to pause it for a little while. If that's what it takes. And appreciating the partnership and keeping it going, and hopefully building up a long-term relationship is quite important. So what's happening at the moment? As I explained, the first stage was the IPU one, and I was quite successful. The second stage is supposed to be, I think, Massey University and one of the highest schools. So to have similar projects running, and then in the end, by the end of 2018, the expectation was that they have at least 3 or 4 places involved, and so they have a lot more work, and they can publish their sort of the writings and have the displays. Unfortunately, for a couple of reasons, this didn't happen. I guess it probably was the timing, due of the staff leave and all those things. The 2 institutes that were supposed to be involved didn't really commit to the project. So the project is at sort of pause stage at the moment. And Mayat is not an MMC executive anymore, but she's still a volunteer at MMC. Since then, I have joined MMC as one of the executive members. So I picked up the project, and I've contacted Mayat, and I'm talked to her, and she's happy to come back on board with the project. So the plan is for us to pick it up again and try for the second time and approach the institutes and the places. I'm also now working at Massey, so yay! Now I can start working at Massey and try to sort of contact with international student services, the student journey people, and also being at the library. Hopefully I'll get the support from here, so we can shoulder out some students at Massey and do the same project. And since we've done it once, it shouldn't be as difficult. Through another project that I had when I was at IPU with the high schools here, I also built a network and a connection with the high school librarians, the head of the English languages and the international office at the high schools here. So I'm hoping that we can also get those people directly involved and get a couple of high schools as well on board and do the project for them. So the goal is to have the final results by December 2020 and have a public display in the City Library. So these are the two conclusions that I basically got from the literature review, but they also apply to us. Basically, it's thinking outside the box, and different institutions will have different priorities, and different ways of engaging with their communities and what they can offer and what the community can offer them. Especially, it's important for the well-being of their students and the people who participate. So a tertiary library doesn't have to be just focused on the students and the staff and the learning in that tertiary aspect and the academic aspect. They can develop different projects. Like, for example, I know that places run information literacy classes for the higher schools or for students outside the university, or cultural and language projects that they can run. The second one was mainly targeted at my board of trustees and my managers at the time, just because we were a private institute. It is important for us to have student admission, obviously. So I was trying to explain that by having this positive image of the institute, we are more likely to have more local people also joining as our students, but also things like that will keep students happy, will keep them sort of, their mental health. It's useful for their mental health as well. So hopefully we will have a better student retention as well. This is my acknowledgement from Mayet at MMC. A little bit of bibliography in the readings if anyone's interested. And my contact details, which of course we will share later on. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. You're obviously a lady who is very creative and courageous, and you enjoy a challenge.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Mojgan?
Sorry, just jumping into the frame.
Hi, Iva.
But being at Massey and all, I've been there. My undergrad, I know the International Student Office is doing some sort of similar thing, but maybe not at the same scale. Are you expecting International Student Office will pick up some part of it and to continue this program as well?
I'm hoping that they can collaborate with, I'm happy to be involved with the first sort of attempt at least, because I know if I just ask people to do it, things might not happen. And they have all the other programs so they might not really be keen on adding another thing to the basket. But yes, I'm hoping that the International Office can help, because this is targeted at the students with the English as a second language. So that will be my first place to go. But we also have a couple of sort of pockets of different sections at Massey that deal with the student engagements and student life and student journey. So maybe we can have a meeting with 4 or 5 people involved and do some brainstorming and see what they think.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you again, Mojgan, and thank you to all of our presenters for tonight. It's lovely to see all the positive comments coming through in the chat, so thank you for that. Just a little plug, don't forget we are doing this again tomorrow with three new presenters presenting on evidence-based practice by stealth, traditional metrics, alt metrics and researcher profiles, faculty perceptions and us, and navigating teaching from face-to-face to online library tutorials. So I'm sure that will be another interesting evening. The other thing I would like to let you know about is that keep an eye on your inbox for a survey that will be coming to you that actually I think Mojgan has done a lot of the work in putting that together, and we'll just be asking you for a few of your thoughts about TELSIG issues you're facing in the tertiary library sector, what challenges you face, how TELSIG can support you in your career goals and challenges, and also how you might be able to be involved with TELSIG as well, because obviously we're all volunteers. We do this for love, and so the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. So if there are no final questions or comments, I'd just like to close off and wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and look forward to seeing you again in 2020. And
thank you.
Lovely. And if anyone's got any final comments or questions, please add them to the chat now. Otherwise, I'll ask Natalie to close off with our closing karakia for the evening.
Thank you, Marissa. It's been great to see all the comments and see everyone online. It's been great. I'm just going to do the closing prayer. So, whakanoa e tēnei wahi, whakanoa e tēnei korero, whakanoa e tēnei tangata, e tēnei tangata, humi e, hui e, taiki e, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Sounds like we're on TV.
Thank you.
See you.
Have a good night, everyone.
I think I have the Zoom meeting running for another 20 minutes or so. So I'm just gonna keep this open, and unless anybody want to post anything or ask any questions to anybody, and we can keep the record of the chat. Yeah, we can keep the record of the chat as well as the record of the session. So
great.
All right.
Yeah. Down to participants.
Oh, yeah. No questions. That is.
People have probably got other things to do with their evening.
Yeah. So if I leave I was running until everybody leaves, and so we'll mute myself now.